Welcome to tonight's Bible study, and thank you for taking the time to watch this video. And I hope that it's a blessing to you as we journey through another book of the Bible in abbreviated lessons. In the morning prayer rite of the Book of Common Prayer, a resource that I use often in my daily devotions, there is a prayer called the Great Thanksgiving. And there's a line in that prayer that goes like this: give us such an awareness of your mercies that with truly thankful hearts, we may show forth your praise, not only with our lips, but in our lives, by giving up ourselves to your service and by walking before you in holiness and righteousness all of our days. In the New Testament, the book of James is probably the best at teaching us to do just that. James, who many believe was the half-brother of Jesus, wrote this very short letter to the Jewish Christian community in the diaspora, that is, those scattered throughout the Roman Empire. The book of James is known for its wisdom and its practical instructions. Now, before I get started in tonight's lesson, let me remind everyone that this is a new study on the book of James, and it's not a chapter by chapter or verse by verse in-depth Bible study that I would normally do if we were in person on Wednesday nights. But I will touch on all the major teachings in James, but will do so with the time limits of using Zoom. I also want to be finished with James in order to begin a new study in the season of Lent, which is now less than a month away. But on to tonight's Bible study. One of James's central points is what we say and what we do matters. Our talk must be backed up by our walk, and both our talk and our walk should be in line with the person and spirit of Christ Jesus. Last week, the focus was on what we do, what our deeds and our actions are. And we dealt with the well-known verse in James that faith without works is dead. This week, it's about our words and their power, and that we really need to be mindful of what we say all of the time. You might recall from our chapter 1 lesson that in chapter 1, James basically gives us a preview of topics that he will address later in the letter. Chapter 3 is definitely the follow-up to his words from chapter 1 when he writes, if those who don't control their tongues imagine that they are devout, they're deceiving themselves and their worship is pointless. So here we go. Hang with me though. Please don't turn me off yet. And in the words of Betty Davis, buckle your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy night. Or as my maternal grandmother would say, as only she would say, hold on to your suitcases and your babies. I'm going to read the passage in its entirety and then conclude with a few remarks. James chapter 3, beginning at verse 1. Only a few of you, my siblings, should be teachers. You should realize that those who are teachers will be called to a stricter account. After all, each of us falls from time to time. However, those who never say anything wrong are truly close to perfection because they can control every part of themselves. Once we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we guide the rest of their bodies. The same with ships. No matter how large they are, and even if they are driven by fierce winds, They are directed by a very small rudder to wherever the captain wants to go. The tongue is like that. It's a small part of the body, yet it makes great boasts. See how tiny the spark is that sets a huge forest ablaze. The tongue is such a flame. Among all the parts of the body, the tongue is a whole wicked world in itself. It infects the entire body. Its flames encircle our course from birth, and its fire is kindled by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and creatures of the sea can be tamed by us, but no one can tame the tongue. It's a restless evil, full of deadly poison. We use it to say, praise be our God and Creator. Then we use it to curse each other. We who are created in the image of God. This shouldn't be, my siblings. Does a spring emit both pure water and brackish water? My siblings, can a fig tree produce olives or a grapevine produce figs? No, and neither can a fountain produce both salt water and fresh water. All I got to say is, oh me, oh me, oh me. James certainly doesn't hold back in any way, does he? If there was ever an instance where James gets into our faces in order to get into our hearts, it is, I believe, this passage. But maybe in our day of rage and insults and put downs, in a day when dehumanizing others is praised and admired, maybe more than ever, we need to hear these blunt words from James. Sometimes I wonder just how much more blunt James would be if he scrolled through the social media posts of those who say they follow Christ. As I was thinking about this lesson, I said, there's not much more I need to add to what James wrote. His words speak for themselves, right? I don't think I need to spend a lot of time echoing or commenting on James's point that our tongues can cause a lot of damage to a lot of folks. We know how lethal our tongues can be. For I'm sure that we've all been on both the giving and the receiving ends of harsh words. And I got to thinking this afternoon, I know that over my 35 plus years of ministry, I know that I've probably said many things that have been helpful and encouraging and a positive influence in people's lives. But to be honest, I really don't remember all of those instances. What I do remember, however, are those times when I've said something hurtful, when I've said something mean, or I've said something simply foolish. And those instances haunt me to this day. And so many times I wish that I could go back and, oh my, I would have never said that. Oh my, if I could get a do-over, I would have never, ever said that. And sometimes I just literally cringe when I think of those instances. And I can only speak for myself, but I have a feeling that I'm not the only one that has similar regrets. And we know that the problem is that we can't go back in time and we can't undo what was said. The only thing I know to do in regards to myself is not to beat myself up. Remember, James leads tonight's passage with these words, after all, each of us falls from time to time. But that does not mean that I should excuse it either. All I know to do is to ask forgiveness from God, ask forgiveness from the person I hurt, if possible or feasible, and then with God's help, try to do better. Last week, I said that the Apostle Paul would have agreed with James's comments about faith and works. He also would agree with James's comments tonight about the power of our words. Paul gave the same instruction that James gave. He gave the same warnings, but he also reminded us that we have a choice to use our words for the good. Paul says in Ephesians 4:29, let no evil or unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is useful for building up as there is need, so that your words may give grace to those who hear. In our passage tonight, after being so blunt with us, James also gives us the motivation to speak words for the good. We are not to speak harshly or evil to one another because we're all created in the image of God. And since we are all made in God's image, no one should be dehumanized by the words or actions of anyone. And being made in the image of God, being loved by God, being God's beloved, commands, I said, mutual respect and dignity. So let's remember the pain that we have felt on the receiving end of the harsh words, and then let's be committed not to pass that along to others. Let's walk as closely as we can with Christ, reflecting Christ in our words and actions the very best that we can. And let's use our words to heal, to give peace, and to extend grace. Let's use our words to build up instead of tearing down. Let's use our words to encourage instead of discouraging. May our words give life and not death. And let us use our voice to lift up those who are oppressed and have been silenced by the structures of society and the empire. And those who know me know that I encourage the praying of the Psalms. So after we pray Psalm 141:3, set a guard over my mouth, O Lord, and keep watch over the door of my lips, may we then pray Psalm 19:18, may the words of my mouth, may the words of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my rock and redeemer. Until next week, God's abundant grace and peace.